How's it going, everybody? In this video, I wanted to cover real quick some of the questions that I was asked in the CCNP ENCOR and ENARSI introductory video. So I'm actually really glad the video has been as well received as it has been. So thank you for your interest and all that good stuff. I want to answer a couple questions real quick as to basically taking all the questions that I received and try to answer them as best as I can. So I have a little sheet here that we're going to go through and detail out some things. So right now, if you want to access the topology file, so the ENG file, you can do that right now. I don't just hand out the topology file. I have a small nominal fee of $10 a month for membership. If you purchase access as a member, then you will automatically get access to the share drive that I provided for all those files. And I will be putting in the initial configs as well as the labs for the file. So this is going to be a recurring thing. So as time goes on, more and more labs will be added to that file and that share drive that you'll have access to. And you'll be able to download those files or go through them on an individual basis. So these are just some of the things that I want you guys to be aware of in terms of what's going on. I won't just link the Google Share Drive to you. It'll be one of those things where you'll have to pay for access for that. And the reality of it is it takes a lot of time to build a topology file like this, IP address it, do the initial configuration and stuff like that. So all I'm asking in return for the usage of these files is a small nominal fee in return. That's all. Basically, think of it like a donation to help me out. That's all I'm asking for. So nothing crazy beyond that. You get paid $10 a month, and you'll have access to all that type of stuff. And if you become a regular subscriber to the channel, then, or sorry, a regular member of the channel, everybody can subscribe for free. But if you become a paid member, then as I add more and more stuff to that, you'll be able to take advantage of those labs as they're coming up. So that's the first thing I wanted to address. Another question I get a lot about is, what are the hardware requirements? You know, what do I need to have in order to run this particular topology? And the simple answer of it is it really depends on the operating system you're running and how much you want to throw at the infrastructure. I will never have this lab fully powered on because there's simply not, I don't have enough horsepower on the server that is running this instance of Eve, which is a virtual machine, in order to power everything on. There's simply not enough horsepower. So 12 to 16 vCPUs and 48 to 96 gigs of RAM. That's basically the area that you should be inside of. So if you can provide those resources, so for example, if you've got 2 4-core CPUs, that means you've got 8 cores, and then if you hyperthread that, it gives you 16. So if you install one virtual machine on your ESXi host, and or Hyper-V or whatever you're using, and you allocate as many resources to that VM as you can, you may or may not be able to run it. I'm just giving fair warning here. Do you need everything turned on? No, you don't. What you really need to be able to do is focus on the areas as I'm going through them. And if you have the ability of powering everything on, great. Then more power to you. You don't need everything powered on initially. And for the majority of the time, you won't need everything powered on. You'll need probably between 12 and 20 routers at any given time in order to fully understand the technologies that we're going to be going through and taking a look at. So just be aware of those details and stuff like that. There's no reason for you to run the entire topology. I may, at some point in the future, throw in some troubleshooting scenarios once we get through all of the main course content and go from there. But then it'll be troubleshooting scenarios, and we'll have to go through and figure out how to identify what the problems are and then walk through them. The next thing I want to answer is, what operating systems am I running? I'm running 15.6 for the routers, 15.2 for the switches. So I'm using all viral images. So everything that I am running, you can too. You just have to pay for the access for the images. It's $200 a year for Cisco Modeling Labs or CML. Go to viral.cisco.com, click on Get Viral, pay the $200, download the images, upload them to Eve. If you need documentation support on that, go to Eve's website, watch some of the videos that I've produced or some other people on YouTube have done, and you'll be off to the races. Blueprints to follow. I'll be taking a couple of minutes here and going through each one of the blueprints at a high level so you understand what we're going to be doing. But you're definitely going to want to pay attention to ENCOR, ENARSI, SD-WAN, and then the CCIE Enterprise Infrastructure Lab Blueprint. So basically it's going to cover the entire scope for enterprise infrastructure. So we're going to be spending a lot of time in those areas and things like that. And what is the release schedule? Well, how come I don't release all the videos at one time? Well, remember, this is YouTube that I'm releasing this content on. So even though you're just a consumer of the content, I am the creator and the owner and manager of the channel. So I am not going to release a ton of videos at one time, because that will not only screw up the YouTube algorithm for me, I will get a negative result on some videos, meaning I won't get as many views. So what I will be doing is, because there's going to be so many videos, with SD-WAN it was one thing to do a video release a day, because there was only 30 something videos to do for the series. Because this is going to be a much larger content scope to cover, I'm going to do releases in waves. So once I get done recording a series of videos for a particular topic, so I've got a pretty good head start, I'm going to start releasing things probably in a 3 to 7 day window, depending on what's going on. Probably closer to 5 to 7 days. So in other words, I've already got the layer 2 networking videos completed. So I will do a quick review of those videos, making sure that that the flow is right. They were all 100% recorded without any type of script. There's nothing scripted. Things don't always go as planned, and if things don't go always well as planned, I sometimes will have to troubleshoot things on the fly. But this is a live environment that I'm playing with, so just be aware of that. These are not pre-scripted, pre-tested, and the reason why I'm doing that is because I want you guys to see what real networking looks like. There are some characteristics in here that will not look real, like for example, if you've got two routers and a link between those two routers, in a physical environment with two routers and a physical Ethernet cable between them, you're going to have to deal with line and protocol, which means the physical interface is powered on and there's actual communication between the routers, or two switches, for example. Here, we don't get line protocol. If the interface is up, it's up. There's nothing you're going to be able to do to affect that. So in a situation like that, we have to be careful when it comes to certain scenarios. And as I'm going through some of the scenarios, I remember that that's a problem in Eve that you will not see in the physical world, and I have to work around those. So nothing is scripted, nothing is pre-tested. No video will be released unless it's a working scenario, meaning that I explain a particular topic and I can demonstrate it, then I will release the video. It won't be just understanding the theory, but the demonstration is broken or not working effectively. I won't do that to you. So I will get the layer 2 networking stuff will probably come out tomorrow. So this video that I'm recording will release today, which is the 29th. I'll start releasing layer 2 tomorrow, and I will release everything that I have. I think it's about a half a dozen videos. And then I will wait a few days, probably 3, 4, 5 at the most. And then I will release the next wave of videos, which is going to be more like protocol independent stuff, IP addressing, static routing, policy-based routing, things like that, so that you guys have time to start consuming the content. So I'm not going to do a video release per day. I feel like with potentially 100 plus videos, it'll take me until the beginning of next year to get all of that released. I really don't want that to be held up for that long, but I'm also not going to release an entire 100 and some videos in one fell swoop. The main reason for that is because each video needs its own pieces of information in order for the YouTube algorithm to know what to do with it. So because of that, I have to go and spend a little bit of time on each video to give it a description, a title, some tags so it's easy for you guys to find, associate to the right playlist, add in the monetization, all that type of stuff. It takes time. So I'm not going to drop 20, 30, 40 videos at a time. I'm going to drop 5 to 10 at the most, which will take me a few minutes to get up and running. But that's basically where that comes into play. So if you're disappointed with the release schedule, I'm sorry to hear that. But I have to also take into consideration that this is a YouTube channel that I am trying to grow, and those things come into play where I have to be cautious on how often I release. Plus, it doesn't look really good when I've done that in the past where I've released a whole bunch of videos, and some videos will get a lot of hits, other videos will only get tens of views. And I'm trying to combat that. I'm trying to get more views on more videos and stuff like that, so that they're more widely accepted and more widely used on YouTube. So I am releasing the content for free. It's, you know, the topology files and other stuff that's going to be a cost to you as the viewer, and it's a small fee that goes into that. Now, I'm looking at probably 2 to 3 months before everything is recorded and released. So I am recording these. I'm about a week and a half to 2 weeks ahead at this point, but that might slow down depending on, you know, just we are coming into the holiday season here in the U.S. and time might get short. I might be busy doing a bunch of other things. Projects might get in the way with work. So if it looks like I haven't uploaded a video in a few days and you're like, why is Rob not releasing these videos? I need these videos. You're just going to have to be patient. That's the only other thing I can tell you. So if you're chomping at the bit and I'm not releasing as quickly as you would like, I apologize, but it is what it is. Would you rather something that's good, that gets the point across and the lab works and you understand what's going on, or something that I just rifle myself through and give you crap content and you're like, okay, he didn't explain anything, I don't get it, not moving, and not coming back to his video because it sucks. The YouTube channel doesn't grow with that type of mentality. So with that being said, if there's something that you need to have covered that isn't covered or whatever the case might be patient for it. There are going to be a lot of topics we're going to be covering. So with that being said, let me go ahead and pull up the CCNP page real quick. And this is basically what it is that you and I are going to be going through. I recommend that you have the ENCOR, ENARSI, and SD-WAN blueprints ready to go. You're using those on a regular basis. I wanted to cover semi-quickly the different blueprints that we're going to be covering in this series of videos. It's going to be a combination of multiple as we go forward and talking about how they all come together at the end. So I actually need to add one more in here, design, because we will be taking a look at lots and lots of design and understanding how particular scenarios come into play and what the best fit is for a particular technology to a particular use case and why and things like that. The first exam that we want to take a look at is going to be ENCOR. ENCOR is the new CCIE written exam for anybody that is interested in knowing about it, and it is heavy on the theory. At least that's my interpretation of the blueprint as I've read through it. There's a lot of interesting details to it that lend itself to being heavy on the theory. Not to say that you shouldn't spend a lot of time on the deployment or the implementation either. I feel like if you are going to be a solid CCNP, that you need to spend as much time as you can labbing up as much as you can and understanding how the intricacies of a particular feature or capability work, so that when you get into the nuts and bolts of a particular technology, you'll know based on the output that you're shown what's going on. I remember sitting down for the CCIE route switch written exam way back in 2014 when I took my first and only written exam at the time, and I was able to answer most of the questions pretty easily because of the fact that I knew a lot of the design aspects, a lot of the config aspects, as I had spent a significant amount of time labbing those features up. So the more effort you put into it, hopefully the more easy the exams will be when you go to take them, because then you'll be that much more well versed. Hopefully. Gotta throw enough air quotes at it. So with that being said, just keep those things in mind. When it comes to infrastructure, you're gonna have to spend a lot of time going through and understanding what's going on. Obviously, this is not a wireless specific exam, so obviously wireless stuff won't be a heavy emphasis, at least with what we're going through. I won't be spending very much time on wireless at all, if any. I recommend you guys look at wireless on your own and figure those things out as you're going along. I'll try to help you out in some areas, but for the most part, I'm not a wireless person. It's not something I'm very familiar with. So, yeah, just being honest here. Services, we'll definitely take a look at how those come into play. Network assurance, we'll definitely take a look at how to get SLA and SPAN and some other stuff operational and go from there. There will be some areas that I will have to dive into that I've never dealt with before, like netconf, restconf, JSON, some other stuff. But again, one of those things that I want you to understand is I am not an expert in these areas. So I'm not even well versed in them either. So I will spend a little bit of time learning a little bit about each one, just so that I can talk at a high level so that you would understand what it is. It is 15% of the exam, so I'm expecting not a super deep or a super quantity of questions, or them to be asking it to a super deep level, but more like, what is JSON and how would you affect the code? Or how would you interpret this REST API, and what is the output basically saying? That's just a guess, honestly. I have no idea what it's actually going to look like. So those are going to be some areas that I'm going to have to learn and get a little bit better in, but that's basically where that comes into play. One thing about ENCOR is, because it's the written, it's 100 questions, it's going to be probably fairly in-depth, probably fairly difficult. So I'm going to do my best to try to explain as much as I can, give you guys as many examples as I can, walk you through as many deployments as I can, and stuff like that. ENARSI is going to be the replacement for the T-Shoot exam. It's heavy on T-Shoot, but it's also heavy on implementation. So if I was to expand the rest of these out, we're going to see a lot of stuff that we're going to have to go through and dive into. So it's only 4 topic areas. So you have Layer 3, VPN, infrastructure security, and services. Those are the 4 areas that we're going to have to spend a lot of time in. The bulk of the exam, though, is going to be Layer 3 and and VPN. So Layer 3 technologies, heavy focus on that. We're going to be spending a lot of time on how all this stuff comes into play and the details for it. And I'm literally taking the blueprint items, and that's basically how I am going through and determining what it is that I'm covering. I'm the majority of the way through EIGRP. So as of right now, I have covered all of Layer 2 that I need to cover. I've covered addressing and static routing and policy routing. I've also covered RIP. I've also covered about half to 3/4 of EIGRP. I do have some additional topics that I need to cover with that. We're going to be spending a lot of time in OSPF and a very, very large quantity of time in BGP, because those are some topic areas that if you're going to be a qualified and a confident candidate for CCNP, definitely something you're going to want to know. And again, because of the fact that the ENCOR exam is kind of your foundation for the CCIE, I feel like if you're going to be serious about CCIE, you need to spend a significant amount of time in this area. We're going to be spending a lot of time in that area. I'm basically going to be taking everything that I learned from the CCIE prep and a lot of the service provider stuff that I've learned, and I'm just going to be just dumping it in here, because I feel like that's going to be the best place for it to go and things like that. So a lot of really cool stuff in that respect. We're going to be talking about DMVPN. It's only listed here in the blueprint as like a really basic implementation. We're going to take it way beyond that, though. We're going to be taking a look at this for DMVPN, single hub, dual hub, spoke to spoke. We'll take a look. We'll basically rip DMVPN apart in our topology and see exactly how it all ticks. And then we'll replace DMVPN with FlexVPN and how all that stuff comes together. So that's going to be a big, major focus for us as we go through. We'll take a look at security topics. We'll definitely dive into all of these, as well as all the services as far as we can take it. Nothing that we're going to be playing with. Nothing DNA Center, because I don't have access to it. So, I mean, you could probably go through dCloud, but the reality of it is it's only going to be so much access you're going to have. I don't know why DNA Center is there. It is what it is. It is what it is. So that's going to be the bulk of the blueprint. We're also going to be doing SD-WAN. Now, SD-WAN, we are going to talk about architecture. We are going to talk about deployment. We are going to talk about getting the V-edges up and running and getting them squared away. We won't be doing ZTP. We will be taking a look at manually onboarding a couple of V-edges and getting them squared away, activated, and all that type of stuff, and then doing some basic connectivity. We'll go through some of the policies. We'll do some localized data policies with ACLs and some QoS, as well as do some centralized data policies for a couple of other things. Not going to be spending a ton of time in that area because I've already covered a lot of that. But because of the fact that it's going to integrate, it'll be one of those things where you'll need to know it just to know it. Now, in the blueprint for CCIE, this one's going to be a huge topic area, and I'm taking a lot of the stuff that you need to know for CCIE. I'm taking a lot of stuff out of the CCIE blueprint, and I'm dumping it into the videos. So a lot of these individual technologies or these topics won't be talked about individually. They'll be lumped into a particular video, and I'll be talking about how they come into play and stuff like that. So a lot of this stuff you'll have to lab up on your own. I'll walk you through a couple of scenarios, but you're really going to need to fall back to the documentation and learn how to read through that. That was one thing that I learned the hard way when I started studying for my CCIE. I relied on a training company's syllabus and training program in order to get me from point A to point B, and I didn't do any outside coverage. And then I realized in my first lab attempt that I still had a lot to learn. I went back and I started learning about a bunch of other stuff. I definitely dove deeper into BGP, EIGRP, OSPF, DMVPN, all the IPsec. I pretty much ripped them apart again and dove into them a lot deeper, and that really helped me grow as an engineer. You're going to need to do the same thing. So the more time and effort you can put into a particular exam prep, the better off you're going to be long term. So there's that. We're definitely going to be taking a look at a lot of different routing concepts. So we're not going to have a video called VRF Lite. We're going to be incorporating VRF Lite and VRF aware routing, policy-based routing, static routing, route filtering, manual summarization, redistribution, protocol authentication, BFD. We're going to be taking a look at all of these topics, but they won't be individually labeled as such. You'll see them covered multiple times with multiple scenarios. So that's basically how I plan on going after this. EIGRP, we'll be taking a look at adjacencies, best path selection, and understanding how that all works. Then getting them up and running and how all this stuff comes into play. The different load balancing mechanisms that are out there. We'll take a look at operations. I'm going to have to add in a little bit more content for doing things like IP fast reroute and leak maps, but a lot of this stuff right here, like IP fast reroute and then add path, were two topics that I was not planning on covering, but now that I see them there, I'm going to add them in. OSPF, same thing. We're going to get the adjacencies up and running and understand how they all come into play. We're going to be spending quite a bit of time in this area because we have to deal with single area, multiple area, all the different stub types, so on and so forth. So there's a number of topics that we're going to have to dive into to understand in order to effectively cover the topic. We're going to be spending a significant amount of time in BGP. I have a multiple service provider set up for a reason, and multiple service provider connections. So that we'll be able to take a look at how all that stuff comes into play and those details, so that we'll know what it is that we need to know in terms of the operations and scale and configuration. There's it doesn't specifically call it out here, but it does mention, it doesn't say confederations. I'm going to cover confederations even though they're not mentioned, and talk about how that changes things in BGP and how it operates. Then we're going to dive into, there will be multicast. Multicast is diving into, it doesn't specifically, yeah, it says right here, Anycast RP using MSDP. So we'll have to dive into basically almost everything with multicast. So that'll be a dedicated section on its own to how to work with multicast. With a variety of different scenarios. I'm not going to go into a ton of detail right now on it, but that's basically where that comes into play. SD access, not touching it. Don't have any way of playing with it. SD-WAN, high-level stuff, like get the controllers online and then get the WAN edge to tie into it, just like we did with the SD-WAN course, and then play around with some of the templates and then do some centralized and localized policies. I'm going to make every attempt that I can to get some stuff working that I didn't get working before, but no guarantees. And then lastly we have, well, there's a couple more sections that we have to go through and understand, but we're going to go to here with the transport technologies. We'll definitely be taking a look at MPLS in detail. I will walk you through how to get everything up and running. I'll basically have it set up to where we can do everything you should know about intra-AS operations, minus a few things. Like, I won't mess around too much with route target import exports, so nothing super advanced that you would see on the service provider blueprint, but still a lot of the same technologies and capabilities. We'll definitely take a look at how that type of stuff comes into play. We'll definitely take a look at route leaking with extranet. How can you add internet as a service within PLS? Then we're going to take a look at DMBPN and FlexBPN. Even though it says identify use cases for it, we're not only going to identify the use cases for it, we're also going to replace DMBPN with FlexBPN to give us more scalability. And we're going to take a look at a number of different scenarios that you could see with FlexBPN, only because of the fact that you never know what you're going to walk into in the real world. So the better I can help you guys out with that, the better off I feel like we're going to be long term. We're going to spend a significant amount of time on network security as well. We're going to take a look at how all this stuff comes together and the operations. So how all that stuff works. We're definitely going to be rolling out SNMP. I've got PRTG set up, so we'll integrate PRTG with the environment so that we can do SNMP. And then we're going to do quality of service. We'll spend some time on QoS, and then I'm going to circle back and do a bunch of stuff with first hop redundancy, DHCP, NTP, NAT, all that type of stuff. There's some new terminologies with the VASI, VRF-aware software infrastructure interface. We'll take a look at how that comes into play. And then network optimization, network operations. So there's going to be a lot of things that we're going to be covering as we go through this. So basically, look at the way that this video series is going to work as we move forward. Is I'm basically taking the CCIE blueprint, and I'm using that to do a bunch of videos for CCNP. That's also going to be a good transition for anybody going into CCIE. I don't see a lot of CCIE candidates using the YouTube series. I do see a lot of CCNP candidates using the YouTube series for preparation. So with that being said, I'm going to leverage those that are looking for CCNP as that to try to help you guys out. That's why I'm not labeling it CCIE. I'm labeling it CCNP for a reason. So that's basically what it is that we're going to be covering and all the details to that. So there will be some design aspects that we'll bring into as well, and all that good stuff. If you have any questions or I haven't covered it, but if you're watching this video and you want to see something that I haven't covered, please leave a comment in the comment section below. Please like, share, and subscribe. Become a member of the channel, and I will see all of you in the next video.